Ja, herzlich willkommen zu einer neuen Ausgabe SI Talk Vancouver, September 2018. Neben mir Morginn, er ist CEO von Big Blockchain und ich habe einen Konflikt of Interest. Ich bin Shareholder. I said in my German intro, I'm a shareholder. I must say, really, I'm not really a happy one.
Yeah, sure. Yes.
Then when we look at the share price, it's not looks nice.
Yep.
But last year it was unbelievable hype, and now it's going absolutely in the opposite direction.
Yep.
And how much cash you have at the moment?
13 million and change.
So your market cap is around 17 million. So you're close to the cash value.
Yep. Yep.
So your business last year you get millions for your value of a company, and then now it's zero. What is the reason why you believe that blockchain, all the blockchain, it's not you
Sure.
specifically,
Right.
all the blockchain companies are not running?
I think there's a multitude of factors. One, if we look at last June, it was really still hard to raise finances then. I think that the market ran up because of people that are always looking for the next hottest sector. And people were moving away from marijuana a bit, although it's still a very hot sector, looking for, and tech. And I think that a lot of these people that are sort of on the bleeding edge of investments are the guys that jumped in without a lack of knowledge of really what the difference is between blockchain or an ICO or cryptocurrency. And and then the lack of understanding of how what the impact is when other countries state that what their views are on cryptocurrency, such as China in December clamped down on ICOs and cryptocurrencies because they actually had a terrorist attack last fall that Bitcoin was used to pay for. Mm-hmm. Then there was South Korea with the lack of KYC procedures for their exchanges. Later in January was the Indian finance minister stating that the Indian government doesn't recognize cryptocurrencies. So we couple all these things along with every year, every January, all cryptos are always down. And I think a lot has to do with that people do view it as a store of value. And of course, after Christmas, people have credit card debts to pay and these kinds of things. And so they sell their crypto. And then the uncertainty of sort of what's happening, it was such a fall off and then it continued to go, it created a bit of a Cinderella effect. And I think that the rest of the traditional investors that were on the bleeding edge were starting to jump ship, which caused it to kind of go down to where we're at today. Summer's always a bit of a slow month, of course, in any sort of investment, especially August. And I do know from the street that even in September, the buying and selling that's occurred is up 300% than the previous 3 months. So things are starting to turn. But I do think that we need to, countries are now really starting to implement regulation around cryptocurrencies. April 3rd in Australia, and other countries will start to follow suit. And as we see more commentary in the media about countries really looking to implement policies around cryptocurrencies, people will start to become more familiar or comfortable with it, and people realize that it is here to stay. I think the big question that people have to ask themselves is, do you believe that cryptocurrencies are here to stay? And if so, and the answer is yes, then you have to look at what different verticals within this industry really make sense. The miners, sure, there's money, but there's so many companies that are getting into mining that the more miners there are, the more difficult it is to get coins. Mm-hmm. So that's sort of a losing proposition in the long run. Exchanges are making a lot of money, but as the traditional financial world starts to look at the amount of money being made and start to make their own entries into the marketplace, and because they've got all of the client base already, to a certain extent, that I think that these exchanges that are going public, unless they've got a significant client base, is going to start to have some difficulties. Then there's companies like ours, which are sort of the picks and the shovel of the industry, in that we plug into all of the different aspects from law enforcement to the financial world, and giving them the tools that they need to be able to meet the soon-to-be regulatory environment and frameworks. And therefore, this is where the next wave is going to happen. I think that it could be this fall. I'm hoping it's this fall, but I think that if it's not this fall, it probably would be in the springtime. I don't think we would see it staying down here until next fall, based on what I understand from the different industries that we're servicing and their appetite to really start to understand it and get involved with it. So that's sort of my finger on the pulse. I don't look at the investors. I look at the marketplace and the request for tools like ours, and it's really starting to pick up.
But should we not take a difference between the technology itself, the blockchain? And that was interesting. Last week I was on a conference from the Austrian and then the Canadian Chamber in Toronto, and blockchain was a big issue too, or a big number there, and the people talk a lot of private blockchains and so on for companies. Do you also working in this area of the private blockchains, or you are strictly focused on the currency side of the blockchain business?
Yeah, we are specifically focused on the currency side. Build it once, sell it 1,000 times. If you're building a private blockchain, you're designing that blockchain for the specific needs of that client, like supply chain management or seed to sale of marijuana, these kinds of things. And each client's going to have its own needs. Whereas for us, an exchange is an exchange, and the same across the world. They're all going to have very, very similar requirements. Same with ATM networks and same with banks. And so for us, we're staying focused on the global aspect of what our analytics engine can offer when plugging into the cryptocurrency blockchain. As I said, I think in our previous interviews, that down the road 3, 4, 5 years from now, when all of the different features have been flushed out that these different verticals require, we could adapt our engine to supply chain management implementation, and analyze when the truck is at the door and how long that food took to get there, and using AI and things like this to really improve the overall efficiencies of their operations. But you're really then just a development house. And a lot of companies right now are looking at blockchain because it's the buzzword, but really an Oracle database or a MySQL database can really continue to meet their needs. Because when you implement blockchain, you also implement a certain amount of hardware to provide the security. And I think people are sort of overlooking that risk that blockchain does offer.
Yeah. And this is what something confused me, that the people, or a lot of people, don't understand how the blockchain mean, the technology mean, and what this mean, why cryptocurrency exists, and so on. So there's a lot of rumors outside, and the people don't understand really what's happened. So, but coming back to your business, I don't know when our last interview was, but what's happened since then? So I think it's 9 months ago. I think it was in January.
Yeah, it could have been that long ago. To me, it feels like a decade ago.
Yes.
We have been, so as I mentioned, in January, we had brought on Robert Whitaker from Homeland Security. And when he came on, he looked at our tools, at the way that we display information, and he's really become the product owner for the law enforcement tool. And it's taken time to make sure that our service offering is better than our competition, and we wanted to make sure we go into the market with that. And so this summer we got to that point. Now we've had a number of trial accounts. We don't want to run too quickly. We want to get feedback from the overall client base to make sure that it is working efficiently. That there's only so much our research department can do to go and test things, and if you run at things too quickly, and the industry starts to say things negatively about you, it's really hard to dig yourself back out. It's just like any stock, it's really easy to go down, really hard to go up. And so that's what we've been doing the last few months, is just getting our Clue product in the hands of law enforcement, our BitRank product in the hands of financial clients, and getting their feedback, getting their input as to if they've seen any problems, and correcting. And there's been a couple, and so we're working through those. And so this fall we're very comfortable that we're going to get past any of the little bugs, and really January 2019 is what we're targeting to really hit the market hard.
hit the market hard.
Yeah.
That sounds great. Then that sounds that you will create revenue.
Yeah, revenue will begin. Yes.
So that means 2019, it's the year where you think really the revenue will start.
Correct. Yeah.
What are the revenue sources for what you get paid from the banks? They install your system so that they can qualify the client, and if it's a good one or a bad one.
Yeah.
So what they need for the regulations. Do you get paid per a monthly or yearly fee for them that they use the services, or you get also paid for transaction?
So there are a couple different ways of pricing things. So the pricing models that we offer, there's an annual package, there's pay as you go, and then there's also different bundles, because certain organizations are not only going to need the API that can ascertain if the funds in the wallet have been involved in illicit activity, but then they're also going to need our Clue tool to do a deeper dive with the ones that are in a questionable range. In traditional banking, it's quite simple. It's approve, close, and or it's a SAR report. In the cryptocurrency world, it's not as black and white as traditional banking, because there's so many other variables that you need to look at, and so I think compliance officers are going to want to know how algorithms are running, and what ones do we call questionable and therefore require further due diligence, so that they aren't leaving money on the table, right? And we just brought on Coin as an exchange. They did 12 billion in gross transactions last year. If 10% within the questionable range, and they were just doing a black or white decision, they might have left 1.2 billion in transaction capability on the table. So with what we're providing is the ability to look in deeper and be able to make further assessments, so they can realize that other revenue than just leaving it off. And then Clue is a monthly SaaS model. There will be, as time goes with larger government organizations, which they'll look for bulk licenses and a discount for annual contracts and things like this. But when we look at outside of those two products, the other services that we offer are forensics. And the revenue this year has predominantly been through our forensics division. I think it's an estimated $1.5 billion this year will be stolen funds and or involved. And on an illicit activity standpoint, there's a whole another layer. It's roughly about 20%, 8.3 billion a day. Your 1.6 billion is illicit activity. But when we're talking actual stolen funds, like private keys were lost, or a person made an investment in a crypto and the guy that was managing it took those funds, or they transfer funds to an exchange and then the exchange theoretically got hacked. These kinds of things, are the 1.5 billion, and those are all potential clients of ours. The money is good on that side of things. I mean, we've got an office established since I've seen you in Washington, D.C. We're the only company against our competitors that are actually operating right in Washington, 3 blocks from FBI, 2 blocks from Homeland Security. And there's a lot of business in that industry, which is great because it builds further confidence on our company's abilities and allows us then to also introduce our other products and services.
That's funny. We're coming up with all this 1.5 billion what's stolen. Then the most people believe that blockchain is safe. Yeah, the blockchain is safe at this point, but the connection point between when you switch to the blockchain or transfer something, there is all technology between, and this can be hacked.
That's correct. It's just like spyware on your computer. If someone's scraping your screen and they can see your private key, they now have access to your wallet. Yeah.
So, and this is what the most people don't understand when they saw this by a discussion also last week. Is this so secure? Isn't blockchain is then not secure? Blockchain itself is secure, but the surrounding stuff is not secure.
That's correct.
Interesting. So to summarize, that's mean you're working hard on your product. You're thinking next year you will hit the market.
Yep.
So we can expect next year special revenue growth.
Correct.
Then you're strictly focused on the cryptocurrency market and not on the private block so far.
Correct.
And your share price is close to the cash value.
Yep.
Then your share price coming so dramatically down that with your last financing you're close to them.
Yeah. Right now we're trading basically at cash value. Yeah.
So, and what is then your burn rate? What do you have? So
right now at about 375 to 400,000 given the month. Yeah.
Okay. Lance, I think it was a great update.
Thank you, and good to see you again.
Next time, I hope we have time in January. Then
Sure.
maybe we know a little bit more if the timeline is correct, that your next year you hopefully will increase the revenues.
You betcha. Yep.
Ja, das war jetzt ein Update von Big Blockchain. Die wichtigsten Punkte, vor allem der Aktienkurs ist so stark runtergekommen, dass das Cash, was sie jetzt haben, nahezu dem ist, wo der Aktienkurs notiert. Zweitens ist, sie sind eigentlich auf den Cryptocurrency-Markt fokussiert. Dort machen sie alles rundherum, was die Transaktionen betrifft, was Banken betrifft, dass sie qualifizieren können, Kunden, ob sie gut oder schlecht sind. Nachverfolgung, sie arbeiten im Homeland Security, FBI auch zusammen. Und nächstes Jahr sind ihre Projekte so weit, oder nächstes Jahr ist der große Rollout, dass sie auch dann von den Transaktionen profitieren. Spannende Sache, extrem interessant. Niemand interessiert sich derzeit für Blockchain. Aber dort ist natürlich so, dass die Blockchain auf jeden Fall nicht verschwinden wird. Jeder, der nicht an Cryptocurrency glaubt und sagt, das ist sowieso alles nur Blödsinn, der sollte am besten hier natürlich nichts machen. Jeder, der glaubt, dass Cryptocurrency durchaus ein interessantes Business ist und immer mehr Banken steigen auch in dieses Business ein, wir wissen ja auch, seit letztem Jahr gibt es auch ein Future, dann ist es natürlich auch ein Unternehmen, das man sich unbedingt anschauen sollte, weil es halt natürlich nicht Cryptocurrency selber hat, sondern einfach, wie er sagt, einfach das Schaufelbusiness, was man im Minenindustrie hat. Jedes Unternehmen, das sich irgendwie in diesem regulatorischen Umfeld sich bewegt, vor allem natürlich Banken und Versicherungen und Co., die müssen quasi ein Produkt oder ein ähnliches Produkt, was möglicherweise Konkurrenz hat, kaufen bzw. nutzen. Ich bin gespannt, was weitergeht. Verkaufen wir meine Position nicht, weil, wie gesagt, wenn wir nahe am Cash notieren, brauche ich auch nicht wirklich was verkaufen. Bin gespannt, was da dementsprechend rauskommt, und sollte ja wieder rüber switchen. Er hat ein paar interessante Marks gemacht, was generell die Cryptocurrencies betrifft, also dass das Umsatzvolumen in den letzten Monaten wieder massiv angestiegen ist, gerade im Verhältnis zu den Vormonaten, und dass da möglicherweise jetzt der neue Run eingeleitet wird. Spannende Sache, wir werden sehen. Das war von Big Blockchain September 2018. Tschüss und Baba. Thank you.
Thank you.